First Thessalonians is written to teach us how to live in the light of the soon return of Jesus. The end of chapter 4 describes an event that many people call the rapture. For lack of a better term, I'll use this word also. The graves of all departed saints give up the bodies in them, and these bodies are transformed into immortal ones. Then the bodies of all living saints undergo the same transformation and join the departed saints in the presence of Jesus. When people first learn about the coming of Jesus, the most common questions are how and when. So chapter 5 begins, now concerning how and when all this will happen. The following explanation may not satisfy my curiosity, but it tells me everything I need to know to please God with what remains of my earthly existence. In this episode, we explore the how and when of the coming rapture. If you want to learn how to live in the light of the soon return of Jesus, this message is for you. I am Gary Callaway. Thanks for joining us. Chapter 5, verse 1. Now concerning how and when all this will happen, dear brothers and sisters, we don't really need to write to you, for you know quite well that the day of the Lord's return will come unexpectedly, like a thief in the night. When people are saying everything is peaceful and secure, then disaster will fall on them as suddenly as a pregnant woman's labor pains begin. There will be no escape. But you aren't in the dark about these things, dear brothers and sisters, and you won't be surprised when the day of the Lord comes like a thief, for you are all children of the light and of the day. We don't belong to darkness and night. So be on your guard, not asleep like the others. Stay alert and be clear-headed. Night is the time when people sleep and drinkers get drunk. But let us who live in the light be clear-headed, protected by the armor of faith and love, and wearing our helmet, the confidence of our salvation. For God chose to save us through our Lord Jesus Christ, not to pour out his anger on us. Christ died for us, so that whether we are dead or alive when he returns, we can live with him forever. So encourage each other and build each other up, just as you are already doing. I'm going to deal with the second question, when, first, because it's the easiest to answer. Matthew 24:36. No one knows the day or hour when these things will happen, not even the angels in heaven or the Son himself. Only the Father knows. There have been several persons over the years who have confidently stated the date of Jesus' return, but all of those dates have come and gone, and they were wrong. Jesus did not come on those days. But this passage also describes in part the how of his return. He will return unexpectedly. But in 1 Thessalonians, the pencil sharpened a little bit in describing the expectation. There's a difference in what believers and unbelievers expect. Verse 2 says, the day of the Lord's return will come unexpectedly like a thief in the night. But verse 4 says to the believers, but you aren't in the dark about these things, dear brothers and sisters, and you won't be surprised when the day of the Lord comes like a thief. The unredeemed world expects Jesus to never come. The big surprise to unbelievers will not be the time of his return. It will be the fact of his return. 1 Peter chapter 3, verse 4, they will say, what happened to the promise that Jesus is coming again? From before the times of our ancestors, everything has remained the same since the world was first created. They do not expect the return of Jesus. A thief once broke into my home when I was away. I was not surprised when she came. I was surprised that she came. I did not expect a thief at all. I had made no preparations for a thief. I did not have a bunkered front door, cameras, or a burglar alarm. This is the attitude of the unredeemed world toward the coming of Jesus. They have made no preparation for his return because they do not expect it. To them, the most unexpected thing about Jesus' return is that he returns. But this is not true for the believers. We know that Jesus is coming. We are supposed to always live like he might come today. Believers will be surprised with the time of his return, but no believers will be surprised at the fact of his return. There is another big difference for believers and unbelievers in the how of Jesus' return. For the unbelievers, Jesus returns in wrath and brings disaster. From this disaster there is no escape. It is now too late to prepare. But for believers, the how of his return, he returns in love. He comes to save us from the coming wrath. Verse 9 says, God chose to save us through our Lord Jesus Christ, not to pour out his anger on us. The flood in Noah's day was a sort of preview of Jesus' return. Matthew 24, beginning with verse 37. When the Son of Man returns, it will be like it was in Noah's day. In those days before the flood, the people were enjoying banquets and parties and weddings right up to the time Noah entered his boat. People didn't realize what was going to happen until the flood came and swept them all away. That is the way it will be when the Son of Man comes. No one knew the exact time when the flood would begin, but Noah and his family expected a flood and took action to prepare for it. The rest of the world did not expect a flood at all. So for Noah and his family, the flood began a cruise. For the rest of the world, the flood was the wrath of God, and they were destroyed. This passage in 1 Thessalonians 5 is written to believers to remind them of the soon return of Jesus, but also remind them of how to be ready for it. The preparation is found in verses 6 and following. So be on your guard, do not be asleep like the others, stay alert, and be clear-headed. Night is the time when people sleep and drinkers get drunk. But let us who live in the light be clear-headed, protected by the armor of faith and love, and wearing as our helmet the confidence of our salvation. So I prepare for the return of Jesus by being diligent in my service for him. I prepare for the return of Jesus by clinging to Jesus. I prepare for the return of Jesus by loving other believers. And I prepare for the return of Jesus by holding on to my confidence in the work of grace and forgiveness he has done in me. Matthew 24 tells us a story. A faithful, sensible servant is one to whom the master can give the responsibility of managing his other household servants and feeding them. If the master returns and finds that the servant has done a good job, there will be a reward. I tell you the truth, the master will put that in charge of all he owns. But what if the servant is evil and thinks, my master won't be back for a while, and he begins beating the other servants, partying and getting drunk? The master will return unannounced and unexpected, and he will cut the servant to pieces and assign him a place with the hypocrites. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. We see that the faithful and sensible servant is not living in dread of the master's return. He constantly thinks about the reward that the master promised. When? No one knows. How? For the unbelieving world, Jesus comes unexpectedly and in wrath. For those that are his, he comes in love and kindness. I like a story of a man whose job was to pick cotton. He was asked, what would you do if you knew that Jesus would come tomorrow? He said, I would go out to the field and start picking cotton. Let's work till Jesus comes. If you want more information, the website where you found this podcast can point you in a useful direction. I worship at Trenton First Baptist Church, where this message is preached, taught, and lived. Come see for yourself.